Hello and welcome to week 7. This week we're going to talk about function definitions. Now you've already used functions. You've used functions that return a value and you've used functions that don't return a value. And we're now going to talk about defining our own functions, and there's defining both of those types, functions that return a value and functions that don't return a value. So let me show you here. A function is a way that you can repeat code. Instead of having to repeat the code, you can create a function and then just call that function. So in this example here, we have making a target, so red, white, red target of 3 circles at random locations. So here's one, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one. So you're creating a random X and Y and then drawing the targets. So you can just copy and paste this code forever, but it's very, very messy. So instead of doing that, we can write a function that makes the target, and then all we have to do is call it 5 times and it will create, or 4 times, and it will create 4 targets. So here we have that. Okay, so we have to give our function a name. So we're going to call it make random target, and this function just does something. It does not return a value. So when a function doesn't return a value, we label it as void. Void just means there's nothing returned. So we put void, the name of the function, and notice after the name of the function there is no semicolon. Then the function contains everything in these brackets here. So we have to have brackets that enclose the function. Now here we copied the code that created the target, and this one actually is a little bit longer, red, white, red, white, red, white. It makes a target, and here we just, from start, we're just going to call that function 4 times. So it doesn't return anything, so we can just simply call it. We don't have to use any variables. And when you call it the first time, the flow of control jumps down here, goes through the entire thing, goes back up, and so this drew the target, and then we go to the second one, make random target. Now notice when we call the function, you have already done this, you do need to put a semicolon at the end. So that's what this is telling you, that you have void, the name of the function, no semicolon, and then the rest of the code is in curly brackets and looks like regular code. And you can have anything in your function. You can have an if statement, you can have loops, which we're going to talk about later. You can have any kind of variables. You can declare variables in your function. So, and we're also going to talk next time about passing variables to functions, but we're not doing that yet. Now you'll notice up here that the start function and the update function have the word public in front of them. The reason that it has public is because in reality, start and update are called from somewhere else in the CT system. Okay, so if you're calling a function, if you want your function to be called from some other function somewhere else, you need to make it public. If it's only going to be used within your class that you've defined here, you do not need to make it public. And in fact, later on, we'll learn about making functions private. But in the meantime, you don't need to put public, you just need to put void or the return type. So here's a function that is an example of returning a value. This function called random coord returns a value of type double. That means we need to use it somewhere. We either need to use it as a parameter or argument to a function, or we need to use it in an assignment statement or print it, but we already have learned about functions that return values, how to use them. So when you define a function that's going to return a value, you say the type of value, so this is going to return a double. You say the name of the function. Here we create a variable that's going to then be returned. So you have to have some variable that gets a value, and then you use this word return, and it returns the value of that variable. So here we're just getting a random number between 1 and 100. We're returning that random number. So here when you call CT circle, whatever that random number had been is going to be passed back here and used to be the x coordinate for this circle. So every time you call it, you get a different random value passed back. Okay, functions calling other functions. Well, inside the make random target function, we can, instead of just setting CT random, we can use the random coordinate function. Okay, so here we have in our start, we're calling make random target. Make random target then sets the x and y by calling random coordinate, and you can see it's used in an assignment statement because it returns a value. So random coordinate gets that random value, returns it here, and assigns it to x. And the same here, we call it again, and it assigns it to y. And then we can create our target at that random x and y. So each time we call make random target, it is going to call random coordinate twice to create the target. Okay, so notice that the flow of statements is very important. So we call random target, then it calls random coordinate, calls random, and then it comes back. So how many times when we call make random target 4 times, we're actually calling random coordinate 8 times because it's being called twice for each target that's created. Okay, here's one of the examples that I have posted also in the week. It's called randomeyes.java, and what it does is it will draw random eyes. It draws 2 random eyes, and every time I click, it's going to randomly put an eye somewhere else. So let's look at the code. We have start, and we have this function called makeEye, and we call it twice at the very beginning when the program first starts. So if I stop this and restart it, it makes the 2 eyes at 2 random places. Okay, then in update, if we click, it's going to make another eye. That's where every time I clicked, it put another eye up there. So here's our makeEye function. We first of all have a random on grid here that returns an integer, and it just gives a random value that's going to be between 1 and 100, but it's keeping it on a grid so that they don't get too close to each other, and returns this random number. So it's going to call that in makeEye. We're going to call random on grid for x and call random on grid for y, and then we're going to use that x and y to create these balls that look like an eye. So we have the outside, we're first making a white circle, and then we're going to make another circle that's the iris, and then we're going to set a fill color, and so we end up drawing this eye picture, and then we're going to print where the eye is, the x and the y. So that's where down here you're getting eye at. So every time I click, it makes another random eye. And you'll see the grid, see it's on a kind of on a grid. It's not putting them too close together. That's where the grid comes in. Okay, here's another example that I have posted called CalcTax. So what this is going to do, it's sort of a pretend simplified income tax. It's going to start and ask the user to enter their income, ask them if they're married. Then here, it's going to calculate the tax by calling this function CalcTax that's written down below. And then it's going to print what the tax is. So CalcTax is a function that returns a value. So it's created here as a double CalcTax. We're going to be printing working on it, and then they check to see what the income is, returns the amount of tax, depending on if they're married. It will subtract some values, and then it returns the actual tax that then gets printed. So let's look here. Enter your income. Let's say it's $20,000. And we'll say, yes, we're married. So it's working, and here it calculated our tax as $4,000. So if I do it again and I say it's $50,000 and I'm not married, my tax is $12,500. So you can see that we are still using start. You might still have update in there, but this program doesn't need update. It just needs this calc tax function that returns a double. Your programming assignment this week is you're going to take some code that's already given to you and you're going to change it so that you write some functions instead of the way that the code is written. So you're going to have to do exactly what is described in order to get full credit. So there is a fly game that is in the week, posted in for the week, and you're going to then make changes to that code. It's very specific to what it describes here. Okay, move behaviors and make these functions, and it tells you exactly what the functions are supposed to do. So let me show you the program here. So here is what you are going to get, and it has listed all the different things that need to happen. So pressing and holding the space bar makes the bird fly up. If not pressing it, it goes down. The bird can't go lower than the ground. There's all these different things that you need to make happen. Okay, so here right now it's all just code in update. But what you're going to do is make the code into functions as were described in the instructions. So you're going to make these 4 functions: move bird, check fly, check drone, check for hit, so that the behaviors for each of the functions get put into the correct function. So the code for behaviors 1, 2, and 3 are going to go into the move bird function. The behavior for 5 is going into check fly, etc. So as you will see here, these are the behaviors. So 1, 2, and 3 are all going to go into that one function, move bird. So you can look at the code here in update and find the code that moves the bird, and that you're going to then move it anywhere that there's code to move the bird. You're going to move it into a function, and then you're going to have to call the function from there. Okay, this is what it looks like. We have a bird here. If I hit actually nothing happens right now. Oh, I have to restart. Okay, so if I hit the space bar, it goes up, and otherwise it falls down. You have this fly and this plane going across. If I hit the plane, I lose. So if I hit the fly, I get points, and then I can start over again. So those are all of the different behaviors that happen in here. So make sure that you are very carefully reading the instructions and how to move all of these, which behaviors to put into what functions, and I'm sure you will do great. If you have any questions, please email me. And also remember that I have office hours on Thursday from 4 to 5 on Zoom. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you next week.